You lost, not to someone stronger, not to bad luck, not to a broken system. You lost to your own body. And the worst part? You knew it was happening. You watched yourself lose in real time. Every person who's ever built something real, every warrior, every king, every creator, they all fought the same enemy first, not outside them, inside. And most of them lost that battle for years before they figured out what was actually happening. This video is about those years and how to end them. Let me paint something for you. It's 1 a.m. You had a plan, a real one. You were going to wake up early, grind, stay focused. You told yourself this time it's different. And then, for a few minutes or a few hours, you weren't the person you wanted to be. And now it's 1 a.m., and that version of yourself is sitting there, staring at the ceiling, hating the silence. That's not a moral failure. That's a neurological ambush, and nobody told you how it works. Here's what science actually says, and this changes everything. Your brain doesn't register lust as pleasure. It registers it as a survival emergency. The same ancient circuits that fire when you're starving or being chased, they activate. Your prefrontal cortex, the planning, discipline part, gets chemically overridden. You don't fail because you're weak. You fail because you're running outdated survival software in a world your brain was never built for. But here's the loop no one closes. If that software keeps running, it doesn't just steal your nights. It rewires your identity, slowly, quietly, until you stop trusting yourself altogether. Stop calling it a weakness. It's a weapon that's been aimed at you. Every app, every platform, every algorithm is specifically engineered to hijack that ancient survival circuit. Billion-dollar companies employ neuroscientists whose only job is to make sure you can't look away. You're not failing some personal virtue test. You're losing a rigged war that started before you even understood the rules. But knowing that, that's not an excuse. That's your first weapon. Because the moment you understand the mechanism, you stop fighting yourself and start fighting the system. That's a completely different war. There's a version of you that exists 5 years from now. He's not that different in looks. Maybe same height, same face. But his posture is different. The way he enters a room, the way he speaks, like every word was decided before he opened his mouth, the way he looks at a goal and doesn't flinch. That version of you was built in the gaps, the gap between urge and action, the moment where a lesser version surrenders and the one you're building doesn't. Every single time you sit in that gap and don't move, you're not losing a battle, you're pouring concrete into your foundation. Is this? Name the gap, give it a duration. When the urge arrives, set a timer. 10 minutes, just 10. Not forever, just 10. Because neuroscience shows the peak of an urge crests and dissolves within 8 to 12 minutes if you don't feed it. You're not suppressing, but you're outlasting. Most people try to win this fight using willpower. Willpower is a muscle and it fatigues. The people who consistently win, they don't rely on willpower at all. They build environments where the wrong choice is physically difficult and the right choice is the default. Your phone is a loaded weapon sitting on your nightstand. Your environment is the battlefield. The warriors who mastered this understood. You don't outdiscipline the enemy every day. You change the terrain. And right now, your terrain is set up for your enemy. Every shortcut, every autoplay, every notification designed for one thing, your surrender. Restructure your environment before the urge arrives. Not during, not after, before. Block, remove, reposition. And this isn't restriction, this is strategy. A general doesn't walk into enemy territory hoping to feel courageous. He changes the terrain first. I want to stop here, right in the middle. Because I need you to understand something that no one tells you in these kinds of videos. You were never weak. You were unaware. There's a difference. And it's the difference between a person who gives up and a person who levels up. The weakest man I've ever seen isn't the one who struggles with his impulses. It's the man who stopped asking why, who decided, this is just who I am, who traded his future for a feeling every night and called it living. That's not you. You're still here. At this point in the video, that alone says something. Most people clicked off before the first step ended. Most people wanted the shortcut, got the depth, and bounced. You stayed, which means some part of you already knows this is the fight your whole life is downstream of. Because here's the raw truth. The hardest part of winning isn't the grind, the cold showers, the discipline routines. It's deciding, once clearly with no audience, that you refuse to be governed by your own impulses anymore. That you are the authority of your life, not the urge, not the algorithm, you. That decision is free. It costs nothing but one honest moment with yourself, and it changes everything after it. Willpower-based approaches fail because they're built on restriction. I won't do this. I'll resist that. But the brain hates a vacuum. Step 4 isn't about what you remove. It's about what you replace it with at the identity level. Not I'm trying to stop, not I'm working on it. The language is different. The language is, that's not who I am. The moment you define your identity, not by what you're fighting against, but by what you've decided to become, the entire internal war changes. You're not resisting, you're maintaining. Maintenance is easy, resistance is exhausting. Pick which one you want to do for the rest of your life. This is why the monks, the warriors, the artists who had this figured out, they didn't talk about what they were giving up. They talked about what they were protecting, their clarity, their energy, their creative force. What are you protecting? Name it, right now. Pause this video if you have to. Name it. The 5th step isn't a tactic. It's a promise you make to yourself about time. Every urge you outlast, every gap you sit in, doesn't just protect your night, it compounds. Neurologically, the prefrontal cortex literally thickens with repeated practice of self-regulation. You are physically building the hardware of a disciplined mind. 30 days in, your baseline focus shifts. 60 days, people around you notice something different about you. They can't name it, but you can. 90 days, and the version of yourself you imagine starts feeling less like a fantasy and more like the only logical outcome. But here's what the compound return demands. Consistency over intensity. Not one perfect week. Not a massive declaration. Just the same quiet decision, made again and again in the dark when no one's watching. The scoreboard of your life is built in private. I'll win there first. Let's go back to where we started. That 1 a.m. moment, the ceiling, the silence, the version of you that hated himself. That moment doesn't go away overnight, but it changes. Slowly it becomes something else. Not shame, information, not evidence of failure, a reminder of exactly why you built what you built. The 5 steps aren't a cure, they're a construction project. You're building a person who doesn't need to fight this war with brute force anymore, because the war is already won at the level of identity. You were never the person who couldn't control himself. You were the person who hadn't been taught how the system actually worked. Now you know, and knowing is the first domino. The men who changed history not because they were the most talented, not because they were the most privileged, but because they mastered the one thing most people spend their entire lives losing to. Themselves. That's the war. That's always been the war. And the only question that matters, the one I'll leave you with, is whether the person you become was worth the fight you're about to choose.